Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wowhead Weekly number 193. My name is Annie Fuchsia, or also known as Annie, and I am your weekly host of the Wowhead Show. The Wowhead Weekly Show. It's funny when you say weekly all those times, it feels like you're repeating the word too many times, but that is what it is Wowhead Weekly. As usual, I have my lovely co host who is not at home, so you will see a still picture of her. Let's say
Hello,
hello
everyone.
to Perk.
I am Perk, a picture of Perk, and next to me is a picture of Brightpaw. Uh, I'm not at home, but I've been working very hard on patch 8.2 news today, and there was so much news that we decided we really needed to do a show, even though I am traveling and Annie is about to travel. So, all the stuff you've been reading on Wowhead this week about the 8.2 PTR and xal'atath, I have been either writing or editing or overseeing and coming up with related features. So we're really excited to do this show and go over this massive 8.2 info dump that has lots of pretty pictures and lore and Azerite updates and lots of good things. We have a giveaway. It is the Purple Puffer TCG pet. The keyword is bubbles. And we
Ooh,
chose that because we wanted something, kind of Naga underwater-ish themed with all the 8.2 info. And
perfectly fitting.
yeah, this show we're going to be focusing on 8.2, but obviously there's a lot of info and we didn't have much time to do notes. So if you want us to talk about a topic that we weren't covering, let us know, and I'm sure there's a Wowhead article on it that I just happened to space out about, and we'll talk for a few minutes on that. But I
Mm-hmm.
think we have most of the stuff covered.
Yes. As Perk mentioned, the 8.2 info dump, the traveling tomorrow morning, and just in general means that the show is a little bit delayed, but hopefully the information will be worth it. Apologize Apologies in advance if we mess up any of the pictures or if we miss out on anything, but hopefully everything should be fixed and we can share with you guys exactly what happened. It was actually a really good, I don't know, I think it was around 40 minutes. It was a really good presentation. I really liked it. It was very informative.
Yeah, it almost felt like a BlizzCon style presentation.
Yeah, it
It
did.
felt better than the whole 8.1 thing that Ian did. That was like 20 minutes. But
Mm-hmm.
I liked this one. It was very hype, and I felt like it
It
builds in
was.
information.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, pictures, Azerite, and then it's like Bane lore. I don't know. It was a very good hype train.
It really was. I also like the tone of the stream in general. So people BFA has had a very rocky start. There's a lot of people who are
Yeah.
not very happy with a lot of the things, understandably as well, of course. And people were spamming Resident Sleeper and all other kinds of sort of negative emotes in the chat because they were not happy with whatever is being said. But you could see towards the end of the show that those emotes were actually changing. So at the very, very end, when they were saying thank you for watching, people were spamming hearts in the chat. Like, I actually could not believe it that the tone of the chat completely changed and everything was just hearts and people were saying BFA saved and all sorts of positive things. And it tells me that maybe the hope is back now. Maybe people are believing that things could be better in BFA.
Yeah, I noticed a lot less trolling in the Twitter replies as well as the just posts in general. And the few I saw a mishap kind of with the mount, the Water Strider being nerfed, but Blizzard communicated a fix for that pretty quickly, and I think people are mostly happy with that. So
Wait,
yeah, the
what was
buffer
that
refresh
fix?
almost felt like BFA was a mini expansion, and Rise of Ashara is another type of expansion.
Mm-hmm.
This felt way bigger than like 8.1, like
Oh
way
yeah.
way way bigger.
Oh yeah. Because the core system is changing in a way, not something that you'd expect in the middle of an expansion, but it's very needed because our the whole heart of Azeroth and Azeroth System has been very disappointing. Honestly, it's not been that interesting or fun to play around with, and it's probably one of the core reasons that most people are very unhappy with the expansion in general.
Yeah, I mean, it just there's so many interviews leading up to this presentation where Blizzard's like, yeah, we know Azerite was not good,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt very unconnected to everything. Like we've said, like there was no story tie-in. The islands felt boring and unrelated to wanting why you should get AP.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt very lackluster. No customization, no collection aspect, and endless grinding.
Mm-hmm.
So that ties into our first topic that we wanted to hit up on, the
Yes.
revamped part of Azeroth System. Just, I know Muffinist danced around the topic before getting to it, but we'll just start with what we think was the part of the presentation most people were looking forward to.
Mm-hmm. I've got some pictures to share as well for this.
Yeah.
So,
So, to recap it quickly, we're gonna go just into the basics. Sloot attended a Blizzard event, and has been sharing a lot more Theorycraft details on his stream, which we've recapped. But might not, if you're caring about that, you're probably watching his stream. So let's cover the basics. But basically, in Nazjatar, when you unlock the Heart Forge, you can socket a new thing called an essence into your heart. And at first, you can unlock the major ability, and that has the really powerful active ability. And then when your heart is 55 and 65, you can unlock additional minor slots. And what's interesting about these essences is that you can move them around from major to minor. They just do more stuff when they're major. So if you're like, oh, I have a cooler major one, but I kind of like some of my old one, you can move that to a minor slot.
mm-hmm.
So there's lots and lots of customization, which is very needed, but hopefully less of a grind.
Yep. And here I'm going to show a picture of some of the essence examples so you can read their effects. I think that's quite interesting that you can, because a lot of people were comparing this system to the old glyph system that we used to have. A lot of people feel like it's just bringing back that system, but it is more. I don't know if I should use the word complicated. It's a, it's a little bit more to it because, like you said, you can choose for it to be a sort of, I guess you could call it major glyph, or you could choose for it to be a minor glyph. And then it does different things depending on which one. And on top of that, all of these different essences also come in different qualities as well, where the effect of it can be changed in multiple ways. It could be the amount of damage it does or the type of utility it is. So it just gives more variety, I would say.
Yeah, so to touch on a little bit more with the ranks, the ones the essences can have different ranks, and the higher ones are likely from higher difficulty
Mm-hmm.
things. So, for example, rank 3 version might be from sources like heroic bosses, and they revealed the legendary essences, which are from very difficult content, and they didn't share any examples, but they're going to have a really powerful cosmetic appearance. So, um, this isn't an armor appearance, but I guess if you have an ability and then this essence modifies it, your ability will look really amazing.
Yeah, I found that really interesting. How can they call a cosmetic thing powerful? Like how powerful is it going to look?
Yeah, I still want there to be some sort of permanent armor type thing because when you're AFKing in Borealis,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to be casting fireball and being like, look how much it sparkles with my legendary. You're going to be like, okay, I'm sitting in Borealis
Yeah.
and I want to look special.
Yeah. I'm very
uh,
curious though to see that.
yeah.
A really powerful cosmetic appearance. I don't know.
I mean, I
What could
would
that
love to
mean?
see some of these. Maybe they'll be there on the PTR. I hope that we can test these out
Mm-hmm.
because it would be sad if no one tested them and then you get this legendary and there's weird clipping issues or animation
Oh,
issues.
yeah. The
Um,
people who were at the
but yeah,
summit, did they get to try these powerful cosmetic appearances? Do you know?
no. So from what I heard, Sloot was able to see some of the lower tier ones,
Okay.
but the legendary ones weren't available.
Okay, so that's still going to be a surprise then.
Yeah. to not to go into the nitty-gritty of what Sloot learned, but some of the more important things, he learned that there's going to be role specific and generic essences. So there are some that work for, all specs, and then some that are, for DPS, tank, and healing. And then swapping essences will work like talents. You can do it for free in rested
Good.
zones or under the effects of a codex.
Yes. No more
No
infinite gold
exponential
costs.
gold cost.
Yes. Yes. That's good. That's good.
Yes.
I think that's another thing that people hated about the Azerite gear.
Yep. Which I think that is still staying. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
little. I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, I forgot this in the notes, but they did clarify that the old Azerite system is staying around. So I guess technically we've got the Azerite system and then Heart of Azeroth next system.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too because I thought they were going to change it like completely, like a revamp. But it's not exactly a change. It's just adding more to the neck because initially, well, the neck had nothing. There was nothing to look at, nothing to do with it except seeing what item level it is or
Yeah,
what
so
level
I
it is.
guess they're saying that the traits in the rings
Mm-hmm.
are all unlocked now. So you don't need to do anything fancy. You just will, loot a helm in the Ashara raid and then choose what traits you want to activate. And there will actually be like Najatar specific traits.
Oh,
And we'll get
okay.
to this in Mechon, but apparently some of the Azerite traits on the armor will interact with a customizable trinket you can get.
Okay, so
So,
Azrak gear doesn't require any levels to unlock all the traits.
right, it just is
Cool.
like, oh, here's a cool piece and I've got more variation in it. I'll just select things.
Okay, well, that's nice. So
Yeah.
you want neck levels for the neck. I mean, that makes more sense in general, right? It's like the
Yeah.
neck is leveling up, and therefore you're unlocking things that the neck gives you. So that's, yeah, that feels like it makes more sense.
Yeah.
I felt like
So
it
I
was kind
wanted
of
to.
limited though. I don't know if you felt the same because there was one slot for a major ability and then two minor slots. Um, I was kind of expecting something more, like I don't know, maybe more steps in between or something. I mean, maybe it's good that there's less slots, makes it more specific, but I don't know.
I think it's okay because you can swap these fairly freely.
Mm.
So you still have a choice of, like what three,
Mm-hmm.
power talents do I want at this exact moment.
Mm-hmm.
And they can be really overpowered,
Mm-hmm.
and Blizzard doesn't have to worry about, balancing a full artifact weapon with all these like little in between things that are boring, like increasing your damage by 5% or, reducing the cooldown by a little bit. They can just have these really wild sounding abilities without having to have like a bunch of little traits attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh yeah,
I'm trying
it's
to
much better
think
than
of
the trade system.
yeah, trying to think if there's any good ones that sound really cool in this list that
And you get the different you fill the circles with essences, right? And the way that the essences work will be like sockets, is it? So when you use one, it's used up and then you'd have to find another one to replace it. Is that
I
how it
believe
works?
that
Or do you
you
just
can
learn it
you can
kind of?
just swap them. Let me check again. Let me see what you do. I don't. Looking at the UI, I believe you can swap them because
Okay.
they've got that panel on the right hand side
So
of
you just click the
a
one you
bunch of
want.
essences. So it would make sense that like once you learned it, you just
You
kept it on
keep
the
it.
right hand side.
Yeah. Which is how the glyph system worked towards the end as well. Because initially
Yeah,
you'd buy new
definitely.
glyphs all the time, but then they changed it to make it like a permanent thing that you learn and then you could swap between them.
Yeah. Uh, I'm looking at this. Oh, they did say many essence passives seem really overpowered, and you'd imagine they have an eternal cooldown, but nope, they really are OP. Um, I'm just trying to find one of these that sounds very dramatic. Um, and it's basically okay. So we're looking at something called um condensed life force.
Mm-hmm.
And this is from Ashara in Eternal Palace on normal difficulty. And you call upon Azeroth to summon a guardian of Azeroth to aid you in combat. And then as a minor power, your spells and abilities have a high chance to impale your target with a spike, causing a lot of damage. Or there's this purification protocol where you call down a purifying blast and you deal a ton of fire damage as an AoE, and has a chance to kill any specimen deemed unworthy by Mother. It can stun all aberrations for 8 seconds. If an enemy dies inside of the blast, your damage dealt is increased by 10% for 8 sections, and then your damaging spells and abilities release Azerite energy at your target and healing you, and deals 100% extra damage against aberrations. So you can see that these powers are getting very elaborate.
Yes. Wait, so
Sounds
is
way
that
more exciting than the Azerite armor.
is that like one essence that you can put into one of the slots?
Yeah, that was the major power, and then the side part was the minor power.
Okay.
So that was an epic quality one. That was a rank 3. So the first one I read was a rank 1, and you can see how they've gotten progressively crazier as I picked a better quality one.
And it improves in multiple ways, not just like damage numbers, right? So it becomes
so you can
a lot
get
more
things
interesting.
like more utility, or it does like 2 things instead of 1.
Yeah.
So that is the new system. And there was one more interesting detail, kind of, I guess, more of a speculation thing, but some of the tooltips in the presentation, they all have flavor text, and 2 of them have to do with fire, and one is a raging fire is a force of massive destruction and the bringer of new life, which is very interesting because when Muffinus, the guy who did the presentation, said in an 8.2 interview that he associated the word that first came to mind with the Shara was fire. So you wonder if he was, thinking of these sample items when he said that, like, oh, Shara, yeah, fire trinket, example.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting coincidence. And you could also think, fire, Teldrassil, Sylvanas.
Yep.
Or, even went back to Antorus, like the bringer of new life. That sounds like Aenars. And I don't know. Maybe they picked something that was purposely spooky and mysterious, so we'd all speculate on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Put the tinfoil hats on.
Yeah. So, if we move on to other topics,
I was just double checking if there was anything else on the Heart of Azeroth system, but I think that was it. So we got a pretty good idea of how it's going to look and how it's going to work as well. And you can try all of this next week, right?
Yeah, they said in recent interviews that it was bad that they didn't really test Azerite early in the testing cycle.
Yes.
And at the end of today's interview, they said that they don't want the PTR to go up without the system fully in place, so the PTR is not going up right now, but sometime next week.
Yep.
So, and yeah, there's more. We have a lot more essences written down. We have a lot of little details that theory crafters might know about, just explaining specific things about this new system that we've documented on Wowhead, and you can find links to it in the Wowhead weekly post on the site.
Yep.
Yeah.
During this presentation, we also got some more information on the dungeon and raid schedule.
Yeah, so this was actually a minor clarification. This was actually not in the presentation, but they told a few people at this Blizzard Summit that it was being staggered. I guess they wanted to give them like a little bit of, insider info so they would have something different to share. So I didn't know this from the presentation, but afterwards I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I should make a post about this.
Wait, so the specific time was not mentioned in the presentation?
No, not at all. They were just like, coming after 8.2. And then, in this news, it's like, oh, it's actually really soon after 8.2.
It's 2 to 3 weeks after, right?
Yeah. That's like
because
soon.
I didn't realize when I read the article, I was like, oh, 2 to 3 weeks. I guess I was just too distracted when looking at the pictures or something, so I didn't realize that they said 2 to 3 weeks. But that makes a lot more sense. They didn't actually say it. Okay. That's funny.
Yeah. And this is interesting because in Legion we had a very staggered schedule of, dungeon in one patch and then raid in the .5 patch. And
Mm-hmm.
then even in BFA, yes, Dazar Lore was in 8.1, but it was 6 weeks after. So, and then, Crucible was in the middle of 8.15. So I think everyone was surprised that the Eternal Palace and Mechagon were coming right at the start of 8.2.
Yeah.
So 2 to 3 weeks after, both of them at the same time. And it's not a month-long delay like Legion, because, in 7.2 we had Cathedral of Eternal Night, and then 7.2.5 was, Tomb of Sargeras, but it's not like this at all for BFA.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is good, because I think the time gating is really overstating overstaying its welcome.
Mm-hmm.
This is also interesting because, when the raid opens, season 3 will start, and it makes sense that the raid and dungeon would be soon after the Azeroth system, because people, won't have every major and minor trait unlocked and every essence farmed up. So people will be still having to progress and get gear and, make do with, not perfect drops or, maxed out necklaces. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that could be very interesting.
Mm-hmm. I've got some preview pictures as well from the new raid, Azshara's Eternal Palace.
It's so
It's
pretty.
very pretty. A lot of the pictures are quite dark, but hopefully you can still see something.
That was one of my few nitpicks with the stream. For both Mechagon and Ashar's Eternal Palace, the ending looked really cool, but it started off really dark.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, maybe just open with, I don't know, a neon explosion or something eye-catching.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like they could have changed the contrast or something to help us see it better. But maybe they wanted it to look a little bit gloomy.
Yeah. Something that is interesting for speculation with the release date is that we always thought that 8.2 was going to come in May, and Mother said, oh, the next thing is 77 days after,
Mm-hmm.
Magni's thing in early March. But if there's a strong prediction that this is all coming in July, because the PvP Conquest Point schedule for season 2 ends in the middle of July. So if the raid and that was coming at the end of July, then we could see patch 8.2, the outdoor zones opening
Mm-hmm.
maybe like last week of June.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting. I mean, I feel like people are very hyped now, but the fact of the matter is that, we're watching the stream, but we're playing BFA. And I feel like it still could be pretty dull in April, May, and June without all this cool stuff. But, maybe if they keep hyping up these intro reveals and communication, at least that could, be exciting to players, or I don't know, a classic beta in there. That could be cool.
Yeah, that's actually a very good
but,
point.
but yeah, late June for 8.2. At first I was like, no, it's May, but now I'm like, maybe it's going to be June.
Yeah. I also have some slides of the dungeon as well. As mentioned, the pictures, a lot of them are quite dark, but hopefully you can get a good idea of how it looks.
Yeah.
Some of the pictures remind me a little bit of Motherlode.
Yeah, it feels like the gnome version of Motherlode.
Mm-hmm. It's really cool though that the dungeon has, what was it, 8 bosses?
Yeah, it's a mega dungeon.
It is. It's a mega dungeon. And that makes it even more surprising that it comes out at the same time as the raid.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'd have to do that if only for things like the MDI season, because it would be weird if the leaderboards continued and they didn't reset, but you were getting gear
Yeah.
from the raid. So then Mythic Plus has to reset and release at the same time. I like these end pictures. I like seeing the blue on the screen. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree.
So we also got some spoiler news on the bosses.
Oh, yes. This was also something that
Yeah.
was not on the show, right?
No, this was
Yeah,
we
because
got
this
most
I
of this
noticed.
info from Judge Hype, actually, a
Uh-huh.
French fan site that attended
The summit?
the event. So, awesome job to all the people attending that, were streaming or making videos
Mm-hmm.
or organized all the information into nice blog posts.
Yeah, because this part I noticed. I was like, wait, there's a boss list? There's no way I missed the boss list. So, yeah, it seems like we have a boss list available, so you can see. And as Shara is the final boss, maybe not super surprising. But something else that was interesting was that Lady Ashvane is also a boss.
Yeah, and she is super interesting because if you may know, in 8.0, she was trying to overthrow Catherine Proudmoore,
Yep.
and she was wearing this gigantic heart of Azeroth around her neck and was trying to, blow things up with Azerite. And then she's imprisoned, and then Sylvanas frees her from prison, and then it seems she's working for the Horde. But now it seems she's working for Ashara.
Yeah.
And we
How did
also
that
learned in
happen?
the presentation that we get to Nazjatar because Sylvanas is tricked by somebody into sending a ship to Nazjatar thinking there's something important there. Jaina then follows Sylvanas' ship, and then everyone falls into Ashara's trap, which is pretty disastrous.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess is that Lady Ashvane is the one that was like, "Hey, Sylvanas, like you should go here. There's an awesome thing," and she was actually setting up the Ashara trap.
Mm-hmm.
And very early in the BFA Alpha, we data mined a version of Siege of Borealis where Lady Ashvane was controlling the final boss, and there were data mined lines about wanting Queen Ashara's aid to destroy Borealis. So there's always hints that maybe she was related to what's going on, but they removed that at the start of BFA, and now that plot point of Ashbane being with Ashara is coming back.
Yep.
One more note on Ashara as the final boss. Wow Chakra, a Spanish site that attended, claimed that when looking at the encounter journal and discussing Ashara in general, that there's some sort of twist where she thinks that she's not a servant of N'Zoth. She doesn't need to work with N'Zoth to defeat us, and she just sort of goes at us on her own. So there is a split between N'Zoth and Ashara, which kind of predicting in the past, and maybe N'Zoth worrying about her, and that's why he's testing our strength in the Crucible of Storms to see if we're strong enough to put her down if she tries anything funny.
Yes, that's a good point.
But yeah, Ian did say that there was a plot twist with Ashara, so maybe that's it. It's like, well, yeah, they're not working together. They hate each other. They're trying to kill each other.
Yeah, their relationship was always kind of weird since the beginning. They were kind of like poking at each other almost with their demands. So it's going to be interesting to see who kind of outpowers the other one, or who at least thinks they're more powerful than the other one.
Yeah, I also right before this came out, I had a speculation article on the idea that each patch will have a Warbringer. And that's been very common, but I went a step further and was like, well, what if they are all the focus of a patch, but they live like Jaina? And then it's like, well, what happens if Ashara lives? Like, is she working with N'Zoth? Does she try to gain strength over him? Like, how does that work out? So I still think, I don't know if the Dungeon Journal was 100% complete. No one has actually, shared Ashara abilities.
Yeah.
But I think it would be interesting if she splits with N'Zoth and also survives.
Yeah, that would actually be really interesting. That would be a great plot twist. See what happens. How is the Alliance and the Horde going to deal with that?
Right, and it's like, oh well, maybe we should, well, not work with her because she wants to kill us, but she is trying to kill N'Zoth. She doesn't like N'Zoth.
Yeah.
We don't like N'Zoth, so maybe we should.
Maybe there'll be a short partnership there somewhere to defeat the same enemy.
Tries to kill us again.
Yeah.
So I think we're good with the spoilers, and we've actually got a reminder for people.
So, removing spoiler tag. I want to go back to the people from the beginning of the stream who resubbed. We never actually thanked them. We had JD Saphir with the 36 months in a row, 3 years. Thank you very, very much for that.
Oh, thank you so much.
And we also have Swiggy Sawu with the 16 months. That was also from the very beginning, so thank you very much. And the more recent ones are Rada with 9 months. And I believe that was it. Yes, that's it. I was almost going to repeat the same names again. I was like, wait, I just said those names. Yeah, so that was it. Thank you guys very much for supporting. We also want to remind you guys that there is a giveaway going on. If you want to enter the giveaway, you type, need to double check if it's bubble or bubbles. Bubbles. You type bubbles in the chat to enter the raffle, and we will determine a winner at the end of the show. I'm forgetting my words over here.
It's late. It's later for us. That's our excuse.
It is. It's almost 2 a.m. for me, actually.
Yeah, but like you wake up late. That's totally fine.
Well, I normally do, but because of my hair appointment today, I actually woke up a lot earlier than I normally do. It was I actually I don't think I said this on stream. I think I was talking to Perk about this before. So I basically forgot my hair appointment and was called around noon as I was sleeping. Like, hey, you have a hair appointment. Are you coming? Or it was like 5 minutes past my appointment time. And yeah, I had to quickly go there even though I did not have enough sleep. And I decided to not go for a nap. So it's been a long day for me. Longer than usual.
Yeah. So this next topic was the most popular thing we tweeted about. Yes. And I think it will also be pretty exciting for you as a mount collector.
Yes,
there are new mounts and this new thing called mount equipment.
Yeah. I'll show up the slide straight away. I really like this. It's one of those things where before you had it, you didn't realize that you need it, but now that they've mentioned it, it's like, of course. This is great. I think it's awesome having these buffs, and it reminds me of the buffs that we get from blacksmithing, you know, like the anti-daze things when you're mounted and similar things. And now you can actually use them as a sort of permanent buff on you, on whichever mount you want to be on. It makes it a little bit sad for those of us who, you know, farmed and got our water striders. We always felt a little bit special, you know, being the ones who can walk over water and laugh at those who have been slacking on their reputation grinding. But overall, I think this is a better system.
Well, it's also funny because the water strider is the most looked at page on Wowhead now. So I don't really think it's that special anymore if it's like a must-have mount and all you basically see are people riding their water striders around.
Yep.
That's very repetitive. Mm-hmm. So this system was put in place because Naj'Atar obviously has a ton of water and they don't want everyone, you know, just taking their little water striders around. So you can craft and then equip these, you can craft and learn this type of mountain equipment to help with water walking, daze reduction, and kind of slow fall. And as a result of this, the water strider is removing its ability to walk on water, which caused some controversy, obviously, because people were like, well, if this is for high-level characters, am I stuck swimming, you know, on my level 30? And Blizzard clarified this very quickly, thankfully. And they said that to unlock the system, you have to have one character at 100. But once unlocked, the system is available to all characters and usable at level 20.
Okay. That's a good clarification.
So it's not like, oh my god, like the water strider nerf, I can't ever, you know, walk on water again on an alt.
Yeah.
You will be able to use the equipment on your alts.
That's good to know. That's good to know. It is a little bit sad that the water strider then will not be very special at all anymore. Because why would you be on the water strider if you can ride your very cool new flashy mount, which will also do the water walking for you? So it's I I understand that they made it like that, that the Water Strider just kind of lost the ability. But it could have been interesting if that mount had the water walking permanently, and then you could add another mount equipment to have sort of like two abilities on it.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, it would be interesting, but it would be really overpowered if it's like,
it would
oh, well,
be,
now I can, walk on water and
and
also
not
be
get dazed.
invincible in like
Yeah.
PvP, or I could jump off of a cliff with water walking and have the slow fall and just not have to worry about the fall damage and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they probably did a lot of thinking around this and realized it would be too OP, but I mean, it was already kind of OP compared to all other mounts with the water walking. So I don't think it would be too far off if they had kept it like that. But at the same time, I do understand that they wanted to normalize it all so everyone has the same, or every mount feels more balanced.
Yeah,
But
and I guess they really just want people to use the other mount models. Like,
yeah,
they make something cool. So when they don't make something cool, it's a recolor and, whatever, it's
yeah,
not as cool as the shop mount. But when you have the really cool thing like the mythic mount, it's still not useful because it can't walk on water.
yeah. No, it's true. Like the beginning of new expansions, until flying is unlocked, I actually just use the water strider so much, because it's so
Yeah.
useful being able to walk on water. So it's quite nice that we can now have the mount equipment, so you're not forced to use that, but you can use whatever mount you want to.
Yeah, hopefully it can add some variety to the world as well. Like, I know earlier we were complaining that the new Heart of Azeroth system is cool but doesn't have the visual progression, but I think it's good that now you have more choice in showing off a mount as you're AFKing, and before you didn't really, but now after AFKing in a Nazjatar quest hub, you can have, invincible out and
Yeah.
not feel like you're now drowning in a puddle.
Mm-hmm.
We also had some other mount news. I'm not sure if you have the slide in the presentation, but there was a
I've
cool
got
loot
some.
slide that had the like crab and the wheel and a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
weird looking stuff.
Let me get that. There we go. The crab is
So,
really cool. I
yeah, I
Something I
love it.
noticed. It's like you're sitting sideways. Did you notice that?
Yeah, it moves sideways. It's super cool.
That's so weird.
And it's like there's a wheel.
Yes, that wheel is so
Weird.
cool. I need to get that ASAP.
Yeah. And then the Snapdragon is also a mount. And also in the image, I believe, a hunter pet on the right hand side and a robotic
Mm-hmm.
cat gizmo that can come in many different tints.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, really awesome new loot. And apparently, for the wheel mount, the wheel spins around and you do a backflip with
Oh.
fire and the headlights come on. That is the mount
Oh,
special.
that's so cool.
And
Yeah,
that
we
is
did not
obtained
see
by
that in the
completing the
presentation.
Mechagon meta achievement.
Oh. Wait, Mechagon, the dungeon?
It's the outdoor zone, and then the raid is called Operation Mechagon.
Okay, okay, okay.
It's a
Gotcha.
little confusing. Like I'm sort of like, oh god, have I been calling it the wrong
Yeah.
thing this whole time?
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
think these mounts
so
look really
that is
cool.
cool.
I think it was around the time that these mounts were being shown that the general aura of the chat changed to be more positive. I think people were very happy to see such new models and without the tag coming to your store in the near future. Uh, but actual
Yep.
in-game mounts that are quite unique, I think made a
Yeah,
lot
it's
of
like I
people
could
so
see any of
happy.
these mounts being like, oh, new shop mount. It's like, oh no, it's actually part of the 8.2 presentation, not the promo presentation.
Yeah, so I think that's really good.
Yeah. Also, not in the notes, I'm really good at this, but this is something that we're both very important about. There is we'll talk about this a little bit later, but there's a robot called Pascal, and you can bring him schematics and in Mechagon. And one of the things you can craft is a Mechanocat laser pointer mount,
Mm-hmm.
which is awesome because, cats love darting around with their little laser
Laser
pointer
pointer,
toys.
yeah.
And I'm sure Brightpaw and Luna
Mm-hmm.
are both interested in that. And now we will have a very cute cat that is
Yes.
mechanical, so I'm sure it does all sorts of crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the most
Yes.
actually this is a good transition because I think I left flying out of the notes. I probably didn't finish the post at the time. There is a reward for flying in
Yes.
8.2.
I changed the scene already to flying unlocked, and I'm like, I hope this is what perk is referring to. It would be kind of
Yeah,
awkward if she presented something else right now. But
yeah.
yes, flying finally unlocked as we get to reach Pathfinder Part 2. And as you can see in the image, the mount that we talked about in the past, which was shown back in BlizzCon, not last BlizzCon, but the previous one, even. We were not sure where or when we would get this mount from, but now we know.
Yeah. And if you played 815, you are probably aware of the matching mechanical pet Feathers, who was available from a special 815 quest line picking up the plot of Before the Storm. And now we get the I don't know, like
The
the mother
matching
mechanical
mount.
parrot.
Yeah.
We also learned a little more about the requirements and some other rewards. People assumed Kultiris and Zandalar would obviously fly, but you can also fly in Nazjatar and Mechagon, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And we learned a little more about the requirements. We still don't have the data mining yet, but we learned that Pathfinder for now will require the achievements and reputations from both Nazjatar and Mechagon. You will need new 8.2 factions at Revered, and Judge Hype said the names were the Rustbolt Resistance in Mechagon, and then I think these are different for Alliance and Horde, the Ankonin in Nazjatar, and Unshackled for the Horde in Nazjatar. And they said they also wanted to use Legion Pathfinder as a model for BFA, so take 2-3 weeks for an average player to unlock flying. And if it's based on Legion Pathfinder, there's also probably going to be some sort of exploration achievement.
Probably, yes. I think that makes about sense.
Yep.
Following a similar system from before. But yeah, that's really nice. A lot of people tend to ask this. People coming into my stream as well, like, "Hey, Annie, when are we gonna fly?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. Maybe with 8.2, maybe not. We'll see." And now we got answer to that on top of being reminded of this very beautiful looking mount.
Yeah, and I feel that I think the reaction that flying is in Nazjatar and Mechagon is very positive because we've seen Blizzard before, do things where it's like, oh well, you have Pathfinder, but this new zone that's coming out, we've decided you can't fly in because it's a new zone and you should be exploring
That's
on the
a good
ground
point.
again.
Yes.
So I think, people are very happy that
that we don't have to go
you
through
can
that.
actually fly in these new zones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
So, in the next part of the notes, we're going to highlight some of the miscellaneous points we found that were important. But if there's a topic you want us to cover and you don't think we're going to get to it, poke sass and we'll try to cover it. Like, I'm already looking at this Q&A highlights being like, oh, there's this article I need to put in.
Yeah.
So, these are some highlights from the live blog from earlier today. I love this first update. Brewfest gets major updates, including a pretzel hat and eating contest.
Eating contest. It's about time, right? Like we talked about the events, the holidays in game, how they haven't really been updated for a long time. So it feels good that they did think about it, and hopefully this makes the holiday a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad it won't just be the same. Oh, there's a new item you can spend your 200 tokens on. I'm glad they're trying to do more, not just phone it in, do more creative stuff with the holidays. And I am looking forward to seeing the pretzel hat.
Maybe we'll see a little bit or have we seen what more they're going to add? I was wondering if maybe we'll see a little bit more of a Dark Iron Dwarf influence as well.
Ooh, I would really like that, but they didn't. The last part of the presentation, they just that was the part that could be better. They just had like very short bullets, and for topics that they said they were going to cover, like new professions and war mode improvements, they just left it at that.
Mm-hmm.
So not everything got equal treatment in this.
Mm-hmm. Another miscellaneous perk. Do you want to say the word?
Miscellaneous. Yes, miscellaneous.
Yes, there we go.
I think what you said was fine too, just different accent. Is the Pet Battle Dungeon of Stratholme.
Yes. new pet battle content for pet battlers out there. I think
And
this
what's
becomes, is it the
interesting,
third, fourth dungeon?
we've got Wailing Caverns, Dead Mine, Gnomeregan, so this is the fourth one.
Fourth, yeah.
And it's funny when we're thinking about how the pet dungeon took us to Gnomeregan, and now we have the gnome-themed area. Like,
Yeah,
a little bit of foreshadowing.
yeah. That's actually true.
I also think that there's always that shadowy figure that is in every pet dungeon that you confront and it escapes towards the end. And with everything being all shadows and doom and gloom, you have to wonder if now the pet dungeon is going to be kind of creepy, or if the shadowy figure will, say something that's kind of old gods themed.
More gloomy, maybe some fish.
Yes. The last
Something along
Strathhome.
those
Oh no,
lines.
what happens if Gnomeregan's predicting Mechagon, what if Strathhome is predicting like Sylvanas or Death?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
We had
All
Jaina
those
as a
lighthearted
boss
bits of
fight.
content are-
Sorry, I think your voice
I
went
said
down a
all
bit.
these lighthearted bits of content, like Brawler's Guild with the trial, are suddenly having this very dark angle to them.
We had Jaina as a boss fight. Now we're getting Ashara. Do you think we'll get the third Wardbringer also as a boss?
Yeah, that was something I was predicting recently in one of my articles. How if we're not successful at defeating Ashara, or something bad happens, if we're sort of banished to the Shadowlands, then Sylvanas could play a role there as well. And I know a lot of people were complaining that Jaina had so many cinematics at the start of BFA, and obviously I would assume 8.2 would be Ashara cinematics, so it would be nice if there was some balance where Sylvanas got a lot of cinematics to balance out Jaina, and there could be lots of interesting flashbacks because she's a figure like Jaina who has a lot of story in Warcraft 3 that we all kind of know but didn't actually play through ourselves. So I think that could be turned into cinematics of like more things tied to her death, or when she was, the Ranger General, or how did she actually form Undercity, or, dramatizing the short story that actually saw her die and why she was so afraid of ending up in the Shadowlands.
Yeah.
I think all that would be really cool to see.
I just thought of it since you said Stratholm might be foreshadowing something to do with Sylvanas.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. That would be
cool.
cool.
I don't think we have a picture for this next one.
No.
But for PvP updates, there was a new arena, and Ashran returning as an epic battleground. And someone DM'd me actually pointing out that in the Ashran image in the slide, the Zandalari is wearing armor that has like little Naga embellishments on it, and it's armor we had not seen before.
So it's going to be new transmog, maybe.
Yep. So that's cool. Maybe that's like season 3 gear. It looked very cool.
But that wouldn't be from the Epic BG, right? I don't think that they would add it to that. Maybe it would be added to the Warfront?
Yeah, it could be from the,
because they're adding the Heroic Warfronts.
Another thing I've left out of the notes, Heroic Warfront is coming in.
Yes, we're having Heroic Warfronts as well in the in 8.2. I'm quite conflicted about Heroic Warfronts because I feel like Warfronts were just not that fun in general, and I'm not sure if Heroic Warfront will make it more fun. I think if Warfronts were PvP, they would have been more fun.
Yeah.
There's something about it because you go there and you don't feel like you can lose.
But they said in Heroic you actually can lose.
Oh, they said that? I missed that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's better. That's better.
Yeah.
Then you feel like you're doing something.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see how that goes.
I feel like Warfronts they need to improve on, but like Azerite was really bad, so they had to focus on that.
First. Yeah. Yeah, because if you look at the new features of BFA, the Azeroth system obviously needed a change, and we're kind of getting that with 8.2 now. And then we have islands and Warfront. I feel like islands are I feel like islands are fine where they are as a sort of just additional content if you find them interesting or fun or want to farm the cosmetics. I think islands are fine as they are, which brings us to another piece of news that we are getting 2 new island maps. I'm not sure if it's worth the time that they're putting into the new maps though. I don't know if you feel the same, but when I'm on an island, I barely really tell them apart because I feel like I'm mostly kind of just focusing on finding chests, finding Azerite mines, and just mobs to kill. And that sort of core system of how the island works is the same among all of them. I mean, sure, visually they look a bit different, but they don't feel that different. So adding more maps to islands, I don't feel like it brings that much new content in itself.
So I'm surprised they didn't discuss this in the presentation, or maybe the idea was scrapped.
Mm.
But back at BlizzCon, they were talking about possibly an exploration only mode where you had to find things on the island, and that some of the island stories would be more impactful in the future. So if there is
Okay.
exploration only modes where you're meant to appreciate the scenery, I could see having variety being important, but that wasn't discussed really at all in this presentation.
Mm-hmm.
I think Snow Blossom, I'm a little unsure about, but I think that the other one, Crestfall, is interesting because it is the site of the major battle that when Derek was going to warn his father Dalen about, that's when he died, and now Derek Proudmoore is revived. So I could see how maybe this island expedition is trying to
Mm-hmm.
bring more history to the older battles of WoW,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
and explain, kind of help his backstory out a bit. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that one's cool. But the other one, I'm like, do we really need another kind of, I don't know,
Yeah. Yeah.
Pandaren
Mm-hmm.
thing?
Mm-hmm. It's kind of how I feel because there's a lot of maps. I'm not sure if we need more, but of
Yeah,
course,
I
if
feel
there's
like
some
some
kind
of
of
the old
story to it.
maps are generic, like Crestfall, location of this battle with the dragon riders, tragic loss. Like that to me is really cool, but something where it's like, oh, here's a jungle.
Yeah.
Like 8.1 maps are okay because they're covering things like there's a story. It's like, oh, Havenwood. There's like
Mm-hmm.
necromancy going on. Like there's more. It feels like a real place, while the other maps just feel like, oh, here's the jungle map and the beach map and the
Yep.
fire map.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I feel
Uh,
as well. And then going to the next feature or another feature of BFA with Warfronts is I find that Warfronts hopefully will feel a bit better with these heroic modes because at the moment it's been kind of not that interesting of a feature of BFA.
yeah,
With the way it is now, I don't think they would continue that system at all with like in the
yeah, they'd
next
have to
expansion.
revamp it, like pull a garrisons on it.
Yeah, I don't even know how they would fix it at the moment. It just feels like I don't know about you, but I don't enjoy doing Warfronts.
Yeah, no, they feel that they do feel. I like reading about them, but it's also they don't really make sense from a story perspective because it's like, okay, so now the night elves and the undead just fight over the same thing over and over for eternity. Like to me, it's just
Yeah, I
it
think it
feels
would make sense
glorious.
as
I
part
don't
of a
really feel
scenario that you
like
do
I'm not
once.
really in the mood. It doesn't push the narrative
Yeah,
forward. I just
yeah.
feel like I'm stagnant.
I feel like it would
Um,
make sense as a one-time scenario or something, but it doesn't feel good as a repeated thing.
yeah. I mean, hopefully they are. I don't know if they are, but if they are revamping it, at least they're not under pressure to crank another Warfront out right away. They
Mm-hmm.
can, try tweaking it, maybe do something in 8.3.
Yeah. Let's see where the heroic warfronts will take us, and from there, maybe we can see what else can be improved with a warfront.
Yeah. So this next topic is kind of dark. Uh,
Yes.
the war campaign is going to continue, and they made it seem like this was the culmination of everything coming beforehand uh, for all the major characters, and it will continue with Bane in chains in Orgrimmar, and this is very reminiscent of the pose of, I feel like Garrosh in War Crimes as well. Like he really, looks like a criminal, with these heavy chains and his arms and legs spread out, and so many chains.
Yep.
My prediction is that if Thrall is meant to come back at some point, I feel like Thrall would be very upset how Bane is treated, and this would be very convenient for Thrall and Sourfang to try and do something.
Mm-hmm. As this was shown on the screen, on the stream, you could see how the whole chat is like, free Bane, Bible thump.
Yes.
Help him, Bible thump.
Yes,
I guess we'll see where that's gonna turn.
Yeah. I know no one wants Bane to die. There was also an interview recently talking about that the Alliance don't have faction tensions just yet. Like, the word just was used, implying they will have them. And
Oh, they
if
said that?
Anduin and Bane are friends, maybe Anduin reacting to Bane's imprisonment, maybe people would agree with him, some would disagree, and that could lead to some dissent within the Alliance. Like, if, Anduin tries to help Bane, and then people are like, oh, but they're the Horde, like, how dare you help them? Or if Anduin is to do anything, they'll be like, oh, Anduin, not helping your friend, you're putting faction before who you actually are. So I'm curious how Anduin will react to that, because as we learned in Before the Storm, they were such good friends that when Sylvanas forbade Bane to talk to Anduin, he broke off a piece of his tusk and sent it to Anduin as a sign of honor, showing that he was unworthy. So we should probably talk about Mechagon a bit, because that is a new open world zone, and I feel like we've never learned as much about Mechagon as we have Nazjatar, because that was like a big focus at BlizzCon. So yeah, do we have pictures of these, or did we show them all beforehand?
I think we showed them. Wait, let me take a look. You can talk about it as I take a quick look.
Yeah, no rush. If we don't have them, cool. It's very like junkyard dirt. So Nazjatar is a quest focused zone, while Mechagon is very open world, and it's about building and tinkering and finding schematics and then making cool stuff. The only real sort of quest you have is that visitors show up each day, and then they influence what spawns are in the zone, and they give you a daily quest that's useful for reputation. But aside from that, it is filled with secrets and exploration. For example, you could build a mechanical cat and then stumble across 9 colors from different activities, or you think you are building, a mount, but instead you're building a spider bot. Lots of whimsical tinker-themed things. Muffinus also took care to emphasize the rare system from Timeless Isle is back in a big way, which I think lots of people like. He talked about things like variation in their spawn
timers. Yep.
Yeah.
Rares will become actual rares again.
I know. It's like I feel like they've been tarnished in recent expansions,
yes.
So hopefully this is their return to glory.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. Like, when you call something a rare, and it's not actually rare because it respawns immediately, is really weird. I don't know why they changed it to that system.
Resources and a green, you're like, oh, thanks.
Yeah. Like, now there'll be actual rares. I feel like recently the only thing that was kind of comparable to an actual rare is the that NPC that gives the mount in Darkshire. If you find it, because I think that one has a few hours spawn timer.
Yeah, there's a few different locations it can spawn to.
But apart from that, there's nothing that's actually rare.
Yeah. So I look forward to seeing the return of that. And as mentioned before, you can collect schematics while questing and turn them into Pascal the robot, and then you can build things like we mentioned, like the Mechanocat laser point mount. There's also this very interesting alternate form of customization. I know everyone is going on about the Heart of Azeroth, but in Mechagon, you can unlock a unique Mechagon trinket called the pocket-sized computational device, and it has punch punch card sockets that you can collect by doing advancements through questing, reputation, and the mega dungeon, and you can customize your trinket in 3 different ways at once.
Mm-hmm.
So to read some of these, like for example, a red punch card gem is chance on damage or healing to get 10% haste. A yellow punch card is more passive stats like critical strike and mastery. And a blue punch card gem is more utility. So like the friend or foe identifier lets you track nearby mechanical creatures. And I think this system is very exciting, and I think that this could even be a prototype to more gear systems in the future. Because, a lot of times someone is like, why is this trinket so boring for the content I'm in?
Mm-hmm.
And if you could customize it a little bit, maybe it would be more appealing.
Exactly. And it's interesting. When I saw this, the first thing I thought of was the old socket system that we used to have with different colored sockets and the socket bonus in the end. And it feels a little bit like they've taken that idea, but instead of just a simple stat, you also get these different effects, which is really cool. And this kind of also reminded me how jewel crafting has been extremely pruned because we don't really have any socket colors, although the gems still do have colors themselves.
Yeah, I know some people were speculating that perhaps this could be used for jewel crafting. Like, oh, maybe this is a way to bring some fresh life into it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, could be possible. I'm sure jewel crafters would be very happy if that was so. But what we did learn is that some of these are purchasable for hitting revered with some reputations, because that's what one of them showed in the
Mm-hmm.
presentation. Um, but yeah, so I'm just doing a quick scan through the coverage again because that ended my notes.
I'm also
And I'm just
showing the
sharing a
slide.
few little bits here and there.
I found the
Uh,
pictures of Mechagon, so I'm also quickly showing that so
yeah,
people can see how it looks like, Mechagon Island.
yeah. Um, so let's see. Here's some. Okay, I'm just gonna read some tidbits. So apparently,
Mm-hmm.
Mechagon has the most secrets per square inch in the game, according to Muffinus. So I'm
The
sure
most
the secret.
secrets? Ooh.
Yep. Um, let's see. He gave the example that there are some obvious secrets that are organically introduced, like there is a Trog with pink bots who hates the color blue,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get sprayed blue and go back to the Trog who will now hate the color orange. So like you just stumble across them and then you do stuff and you realize there's more than you thought. Uh, quests will not appear on the map in Mechagon. You will have to explore to find new quests and objectives. Or I guess go to Wowhead because we'll have the maps. um,
Mm-hmm.
Najatar is not time gated. So to clarify, the raid is 2 or 3 hours, weeks later, but it's not
I was
like
going to say, wait,
before, which is only 1 quest a week.
I was like, is Perk giving us the time it takes to clear the raid? 2 to 3 hours?
But yeah, so it won't be like Broken Shore. You can only do 2 quests a week, and then you are twiddling your thumbs. You can do all the story at once.
Yeah, that's good. That is
Uh,
good.
Operation Mechagon. The second half of the dungeon is a gauntlet with little trash, but has things like spinning blades, conveyor belts, and flamethrowers. And they want you to think of it as a 5-man raid instead of a dungeon. And it will have a separate lockout like Karazhan and comparable item level to Mythic Karazhan. This was interesting. They said some of the trinket customization punch cards we were just talking about
Mm-hmm.
will have really good synergy with some of the Azerite traits that you can get
Ah,
from Mechagon.
okay.
So maybe that's a way to keep the Azerite armor interesting
Mm-hmm.
in a way that's not like, oh, well, unlock this trait at crazy heart level.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Um,
So because there's no heart levels that you need to use or to unlock traits, the Azerite gear is kind of just a given. There's no progression.
No, you just, I guess it comes down to preference that, maybe there's one really awesome trait, so you just want to farm for a piece of gear.
Yeah, yeah, of course. But there's no progression in one Azerite piece.
Yeah.
So once you have it, then it's done.
Right. I think that's about it for the recap. As usual,
I think
as no
so
one's
too.
mentioned anything to ask about stuff we missed.
Yeah, if there's anything that you
So,
guys remember seeing
yeah.
or something that you heard of and you have any questions, just at SAS or at Wowhead and we can
Yeah.
try to discuss it.
Yep. So yeah, we actually had some other news that we wanted to discuss.
Yeah,
Oh
more
yeah, as a
live
reminder,
news.
PTR is next week, so probably next week's show will have a lot of data mining themed things.
More insight into everything that we talked about today.
Yeah. I'm getting the sense that the people attending the Blizzard event did more stuff like Mechagon and the dungeon, so I don't know if all the Nazjatar stuff is playable or if they really want people to focus on the heart right away for testing, so they don't want people to be, off swimming around. But I guess we will see very soon.
Something I just remembered was I'm not sure if it was entirely new news or if it was news, but the heritage armors.
Oh yeah. We can highlight that again.
I'm not sure if I have the pictures, but they were showing gnome heritage armor, and was there a second one too?
Yeah, it was the Tauren one that was actually right before I forgot because that was right before they dropped the image of Bane. So it's like,
yeah.
You just forgot about the heritage armor.
Uh-huh. And I with these old ones, usually what you need to do to unlock them is a quest line. It's not the same as the new allied races where you have to create a new one and level them. I think the idea around that would be that people probably already have leveled them in the past, so it would be strange to, force people to re-level them just for heritage armor. So yeah, you don't have to worry about leveling, but you can unlock them by doing a quest. Just like we did with the Blood Elf.
Will go over the surviving members of Thermoplug's family. And the Tauren one, you will be reaching out to the spirits, and he's like, oh, they seem restless. And then he's like, oh, maybe they're restless because of what's happening to Bane. He's like, first we need to address this. So I wonder how that will turn out. I really hope Bane doesn't die.
Yeah,
I hope that
no.
Thrall just comes in and it's like, I'm in charge, and Sylvanas is like, oh well, I'm just gonna resurrect everyone now.
I feel like Bane has always just been such a good guy. Like, it would be so wrong if he just died.
I know, there's always Varian died, and it's like, oh, these
yes,
nice characters are dying in sacrificial moments.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Being sacrificed for the better good. But yeah, we can jump into the news which are more relevant to what we are playing right now. We had some updates with the xal'atath questline. If you played since reset, you may have found the new questline, which is available in game right now, to do with xal'atath.
Yeah. So this starts from the Asharan medallion, which only drops from Naga during Naga invasion quests. So if there isn't one up now, you can't start it. And basically, we find the Blade of the Black Empire, and we accidentally, because she's very persuasive, collect these relics for her, which strengthens her, and she is able to take on a human form from the Blade. And then we end up bringing these relics to N'Zoth, and he's so grateful that she brought us to him that he frees her.
Yeah. Should I play the cutscene?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, you can just mute, and then I'll just talk about the story over it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I was gonna suggest as well. Because we have a cutscene of this. What I'll do is I'll mute the video and Perk can talk about it at the same time. Let me just find it. It should be here, I think. Yes, cinematic. Okay, I'll play it. Are you ready?
1 sec. Let me pull this up too. 1 second. I just have so many windows. There we go. Let me scroll down.
Oh, that was
all right.
ready
Yeah,
yet.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yep.
There might be sudden sound, but I'll mute it as soon as I can. All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hear me, God of the Deep. I have
Azeroth cutscene. This is the first time we've seen Azeroth in game, although we've seen him before in Warbringers Ashar. And we can see that we are wielding the Blade of the Black Empire. N'Zoth is very happy with us. We dropped the blade, and now we're getting his gift. And xal'atath apparently is working with N'Zoth, who lets her go, but still wants the blade to remain, which we speculate will find its way into the hands of Sylvanas. And xal'atath is now fully independent, goes through the Void portal, says we're going to meet again. We probably will. Blizzard's made more stories in the future. And now N'Zoth is saying very ominous things, and we are about to get his gift, which is plays a very major plot point. A lot of people don't realize this, but after this cutscene, you have a choice, a permanent choice, to accept the gift or to cleanse the gift. Oh, and they were getting the gift right now. Obviously, this does not look very good or safe. And he says, "Receive your gift and see all truths before you." So then after this cutscene, when we go to our faction leaders and explain what happened, it's very clear that we are tricked. And we obviously did something very wrong. And they're like, "Oh, you should cleanse this right away." But we have the option to ignore the quest and not cleanse it. If you don't cleanse it, you see everyone that had the same choice has an eyeball on top of their head.
Ooh, I have a picture of it too.
And it's like a secret society because you only see it on people that made the same choice. And then if you get rid of the gift, you get a special toy that replicates the effect. And you don't know who's chosen it or who has kept it. And I can't verify this on the Alliance side, but apparently on Horde side, if you keep the gift, the citizens say weird things to you about hearing voices and some dark things on the Zandalari dock. So the questline basically ends where Sylvanas is very interested in the Blade of the Black Empire remaining behind, and when is worried she will do something bad with it, and this sets us up perfectly to go into the Crucible of Storms raid, which opens next week in only a few days.
Yeah. It's funny because when we were watching the show today, or when I was watching the show today, I was almost feeling like, okay, 8.2, that's the next thing. But we actually have new content already next week with this new raid. It's going to be a short one. It's a 2-boss raid only, but it does bring quite a few new things to the game. For example, the items that drop in there, all, like maybe not all, but most of them have very special effects that we haven't really seen on regular armor, at least not yet. Yeah. Unless, well, we've seen similar effects on trinkets, but now we start seeing them on things like legs as well, which is interesting.
Yeah, and many of them have harmful side effects in addition to
that's
their
also really
beneficial effects. So it sort of replicates this dangerous line we are walking because we go into this raid and we decide to take back these relics and use the relics to fight the old gods, and it's like, well, aren't they really dangerous? Like, why are we doing this? This seems like it could backfire and go really and I'm curious to see. I wonder if there's a surprise cinematic we don't know about, because there are a lot of questions, even though this raid is very short. For example, whenever we wipe, the bosses are saying we're not worthy, and we defeat them. They're like, "Oh, you passed the trial," and it's like,
Like
"Wait,
what
we're
trial
like
is this?
happy we're beating them. This sounds wrong."
Yeah,
Um,
that's actually really
which
creepy. They want to be
Yeah, and it's like,
defeated.
wait,
Why?
is this like a gigantic test? Like, I had an
Mm-hmm.
idea as a parallel to the Trial of Valor, which
Mm-hmm.
was the the mini raid where we passed Odin's test, and then he was like, "Hey, like, why don't you go beat up Helya for me now?"
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like this could be the same thing, where it's all, "Oh, I tricked you into showing how strong you were, and now you're totally strong enough to fight Ashara,"
Yep.
which plays into my plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what's going on. I think that we think we're all being heroic in this raid, but N'Zoth is just really
Testing
happy that
us.
we're so strong and we can use these evil relics in a powerful way.
Mm-hmm. And that also makes it
Um,
more interesting in terms of, because if that's the reason why we're going into the raid and fighting Ashara, what kind of conversations are we going to see when we're fighting her?
exactly. I mean, she has so much history with us, and she's tried to mess up both sides in
Yeah.
BFA. And if
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't like N'Zoth, like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure she's going to be angry about Crucible of Storms now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another detail I didn't put into the notes, but it's interesting. This was an interview for Forbes that appeared right before the info dump. While this is a short 2-boss raid, the first boss, Restless Cabal, is tuned to be at the level of a mid Dazar Alor boss with Unot comparable to Jaina. So a lot of people have been
Hmm.
saying that, oh, it's short, like maybe it won't be a big raid race, but it could actually be if Jaina took the vast majority of Dazar lore raid progression. She took a week,
Exactly.
so could
Because
Unot take
it was like 6, 7 bosses that were down in the first day, right?
exactly? Yeah, they all died the first date.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be
Um,
that strange if only one boss is kind of hard.
yeah, so it could still kind of give people a run for their money. I know also some concerns that this overlaps with MDI. I feel like that wasn't a dev decision. Maybe it was like a marketing or esports decision.
Hmm.
But I do think it would probably be better if the different types of PVE progression weren't all at the same time.
Yeah. No, I agree. It feels a little bit silly that they are overlapping each other,
Yeah.
especially for those who want to compete in both.
I also wanted to highlight that we have our strategy guides done by Fat Boss TV. You may have noticed their video previews are live, and they link to the Wowhead written guides in the description.
Mm-hmm.
They maintain the written guides for Wowhead, but they also, do their guides, the previews, and then they do the in-depth guides, and then they do the mythic guides. So all that's coming along. The first round of guides are up, so you can use that, share them with your raid team to see what you need to get done. We will also have the spec-specific tips coming soon, probably closer to the raid launch next week for all 36 specs, and soon after that, the popular talents from Warcraft logs.
Mm-hmm.
Sass would like me to remind people that there is a final reminder on the giveaway: a purple puffer pet with the keyword to enter as bubbles.
Bubbles. Purple Puffer. TCG
Yep.
pet up for grabs. Final reminder. And that brings us to the last topic of the night. We kind of go back to the topic of mounts and collections. We have some new site features on Wowhead, and I will show an example of them. Actually, I'm not sure if I have my image. Okay, you can introduce the topic as I get the image quick.
All right. So we've long had collection features here and there on Wowhead, like the profiler for mount and pet tracking. And with all the really cute mounts of 8.2, we thought it was worth our while to spruce them up and make them look better and take all of our features and put them on one easy to use page. Like, we've got 3D models, We've got an option where if you track character, it shows your mount progress anywhere on the site. Like we said, we can track your personal collection. We have guides to mounts, we have comments, but they're all on like 5 different pages. So we decided to take all these features and create separate pages for the mount tracking tool and pet collection tracking tool.
Perfect timing. I've got the slides up now. So, as an example, I used myself or my own character, Amy Fuchsia on Ravencrest EU, and you can see here my collection, how many mounts I have, and how many mounts I'm missing, which are still available in the game. And you can also use different filters to search for different things, and you can also search to specifically look for a mount with a specific name. And we have the same thing, but for pets as well. Let me show my pet collection. There we go.
And if you click on any of these lovely images, it opens up the mount in 3D. So if you're not sure what you're missing in your collection, or, you know, like if you hear the name of a mount, you icon, you might not know if it looks cool. But if you're just browsing through this long list of images, you might realize that, oh, hey, like, you know, I really like dragons. Seeing 3 dragons, I'm gonna go dragon. And if you look at the picture that Annie shared at the very top where it says pin this character, when you hit the pin option, when you visit any mount or page on Wowhead, or filter on the site, or mouse over tooltip on the site, it will tell you if you have that mount or not.
Yes.
So if you do a filter for like ground mounts from Legion, there will be a little column being like, hi, out of these 20 mounts, you have 10 of them. So it just personalizes the site a bit more, and we think that is a cool type of integrated feature. We've gotten a ton of feedback about these tools. We are working, I don't know if the Heart of Azeroth or data mining will eat up a lot of our time, but we definitely want to prioritize some of the bugs and display improvements that people have been pointing out in the tool, because it's gotten such a great reception. And it's not even a new tool, it's just like existing stuff with a really awesome UI. And our designer is super amazing. We recently got another designer on board, and she helped out with the Lightbound Undead models, and also now with the tool facelift. So we're definitely going to be doing more design work in this style.
I like how people in the chat are talking about me just showing off my mounts and pets. I just thought it would
no
be...
love rocket for you.
Yeah, no love rocket. Have to be reminded. I was actually, according to this list, I'm missing quite a few mounts, but not that many pets. I'm missing like 10 or 15 pets in the game. So that's cool.
Yeah. So,
but I'm missing a lot more mounts, though.
I know. You have to get them. Get all of them.
Especially those island expedition ones. It's going to take some time.
So, I think we've picked a winner, but he's not been saying anything yet.
Waiting on response from Rafix. Apparently Rafix is the winner. Maybe he can hear us when we actually call out his name. Yep, there he is. There he is. Congratulations, Rafix.
Yay.
Yay. And I think that brings us to the end of our notes.
Yeah. So we didn't have too many questions. There was a few we can go through quickly. I don't really have amazing answers though. Cladria asked any word on night elf stuff during this patch. They didn't mention anything specifically, but as Ashara's original falling out was as the ruler of the night elves, and then she caused the sundering and sunk into the ocean and destroyed their lands. I think they could play a role. I think they'd have a lot of feelings about, facing off against their beloved leader that tried to kill all of them.
Yeah.
Aegis is asking, what about the gnome called Curvo Cogpipe next to a vault door in the abandoned Junkheap? I've never heard of him before, and suddenly there he is. Do we know anything about him yet? Well, I don't know a ton about him yet, but I will look him up on Wowhead and see if someone else knows about him to see if someone has left a comment. So he was added in patch 8.15, and Yeah, I think he was a teaser in Mechagon because the comments just say from 14 days ago, if you speak to him, he says the following: I aspire to greatness beyond your imagination. There are important calculations to finish, so leave me alone. And if you try to interact with the door, he says, the secret is here. All my tests were correct. I am worthy. You can't deny me access. So probably just a teaser NPC for Mechagon.
Okay.
And Jorak Ravenholt says, do you think Blizzard will add Mythic and PvP versions of Warfronts? I don't know how the tuning would go, but I feel that if the higher difficulties have better engagement than the lower one, they could look into ramping up the difficulty and seeing how that continues to play out.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point that you made there. Looking at engagement and not just, oh, let's have higher damage numbers and higher everything and, slap the category or the difficulty mythic. But if they could make it more interesting, then I could be open for it. I think we're going to see how heroic differs from normal and take it from there.
Yeah, I can
because
see that.
at the moment they're not very fun, and just adding more difficulties is not going to make it more fun. But adding PvP, however, I think could make them more interesting.
Yeah. So we that's about it for our notes. But I am checking work chat, and all of my awesome co-workers are continuing to update things. So, for example, I was just told that our gigantic patch 8.2 Rise of Ashara guide got a third update today with more info.
Ooh.
So, to be very detailed now. They were adding more things about, like heritage armor and flying rewards and this and that. So definitely check that out if you want to see everything in one place, organized by topic.
I just checked Wowhead's front page, and you can see all the recent articles. Okay, I think you guys just heard me take a picture. I'll post it in the chat. I think it looks funny how there's so many articles, and they are all recent. Just a few hours. So many new articles.
Yeah, the live blog is nearly off the first page. I should probably sticky it or do something so it doesn't do that. That's not
good. So much stuff to cover. Yeah. It's really nice to see that you guys are working on all of it so fast.
Yeah, it's really fun with a team. I mean, it's not just one person doing it. Like, leading up to the reveal, we had, Squishy live blogging, and Stevon was taking screenshots of everything, and I was doing the live tweets. And then as that was wrapping up and people were talking about, NDA dropping and sharing their interviews, Mary and Angelin were, looking to scan for new info in those interviews, like the raid release schedule. And then Katsuki was, looking at streams to see if there's anything new from the stream that we could learn. And then Archie woke up later to recap some of the stuff when other people needed to eat dinner. So it's really been a massive effort on our part to organize the stuff. Like, I had no idea what was being dropped. Like, I was wondering there was an event because people were saying stuff to hype it up, but I was not at this event, obviously, because I'm across the country.
Yeah.
But I didn't know I being revealed. I didn't know anything. Like, my guess would be that it won't be Nazjatar, but it's that they got Mechagon. So I don't know. It's sort of fun to react to stuff and try to get stuff out as fast as you can while without sacrificing quality.
I like how you were able to just personally shout out each person for what they're doing. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's really important because, I'm doing this show, and a lot of people will message me on Twitter about stuff or just assume that I do it, like, the Ghost Crawler syndrome. Like, oh, Ghost Crawler did everything good and bad on the product.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to,
you get all the credit and all the negatives too.
Yeah.
No, that's really nice. It's a strong team. Good job, all of you. It's awesome work.
And next week, the dev team will have a similar experience with all the data mining. I can't wait.
Yeah. PTR next week. So you didn't have to do PTR on your birthday, at least.
About the info drop because they specifically had the stream before the NDA reveal. And then they told us when the PTR was coming up, and I don't really think they give us a heads up in the past. And then they, shared the important abilities in advance. So our first impression was of, Sloot and, accomplished raider and MBI analyst discussing them, as opposed to like weird data mining that could look weird without context. So they really care about first impressions. And I'm sure there's some tricks in the data mining, because at the end of the presentation, Jeremy Fiesel was like, oh, he's like, next we will have all the models and broadcast text. So I'm sure there's something crazy in the broadcast text for us to see. I really like how that went from being like sort of a weird, not like taboo, but like a topic where it was like giving people a headache, like, oh, these people are going to mess up the broadcast text. Surely they can't predict what happens. Like, they're just stuff out of context. It's not fun. But I feel the community has really embraced trying to do high quality analysis of it, and almost turning it into, like little spoilers for an upcoming TV show where you get a little taste and then you try to guess even more. And I think it's really cool that now in the presentation, Jeremy Fiesel is shouting it out as something to look forward to next week.
So that's a good point. Usually you get all the data mining first, and then it's kind of like talked about later, but now it's been presented already.
Yeah, I mean, I will always try to do the best possible job regardless of however it's presented. It's not like, oh, someone else got the info before me and I can't data mine. It's like, well, now we just do an opinion piece on what was presented, and
of course,
we can still do a good job. And I think
and
cool,
I think data mining will have more info too, or more, like a lot more things.
It's cool to spread the info around as well. Like with Hearthstone, they always give different people each time a card to reveal, and you can't really do that with WoW. But I think it's cool that people from around the world learned different things, and the event overall and the stream seemed really positive. So maybe maybe they'll do more in the future. So I think that's about it.
Yeah, I think that is about it indeed.
Thank you so much, everyone who used Wowhead this week. Especially today. It's been really intense traffic, as you can imagine.
And thank you for doing this as you're traveling. You're at your parents', right?
Yeah, I came over Wednesday overnight, got my redone yesterday. Spent all of today. Oh yeah, then on the plane I wrote my gigantic speculation article, because I'm like, I'm gonna get this article before the drop because it's important, and I did.
Yep.
And then tomorrow's my birthday. Well, it is in Swedish time, but in US time it's the 12th. So I was planning on going out and doing some cool stuff with my parents. We're really into gardening. If you know me on Twitter, I'm always posting pictures of flowers. We're gonna go to cherry blossoms. But I was like, no, I can't go. There's a PTR, but it's going to drop. It's going to be horrible. Like, I have to work the whole day.
Yeah, I remember you talking about it last week.
Now that there's no PTR, I'm like, I'm free. We're going to go out.
Yep.
But PTR has to be next.
Yeah, I remember you talking about it last week. Like, what if PTR is on the same day as my birthday? Then I'm just going to sit on that all day. But instead, you get to go outside and start enjoying things.
Yeah, so like it was pretty intense today. It's also really funny explaining what the PTR is to your parents.
Yeah, do they understand it?
No, I was like, oh, so we're not getting all that info tomorrow like I thought, and they're like, oh, but like, why are you still working and doing all this stuff? I'm like, well, they told us about the info coming, and I have to explain it, but they didn't actually give us the info, so it's a two-parter. And but yeah, it's they're very supportive of it. Like at the start of the show, I think
that's awesome.
My parents were having Wowhead Weekly playing 2 rooms over, and I was hearing my voice echoing. And I was talking about it, and then my parents yell over like, oh, well, we'll volume for you. So
yeah. And it's funny as well, explaining PTR.
A post-it note being like, hi, we have some dinner for you. We're going out, like you have food for you, like, whenever you're done with the show. So they knew not to like, be noisy or disrupt the show.
Yeah.
They just like a piece of paper.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's really good. But yeah, I was just thinking of the idea of explaining PTR. It's like, yeah, it's like they're game updates that are not really there yet. It's like you get
Right.
to try the game beforehand, kind of.
Right.
So
And then you tell them, you're like, I'm like, well, I'm like, Blizzard told some people what was happening. It's like, well, like, you do good work. Like, why aren't they telling you? And it's like, well, like, we get it in the data, so we don't really need that. Like, we sort of have different purpose. And it's like, oh, but like, so why aren't you getting the data?
yeah,
It's like, well, I don't. That's a really good question, Mom.
yeah. That's
But yeah,
funny.
thanks, Aegis. She is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we do a lot of cool stuff together. We both like fashion and gardening and going out. Ever since she retired, she's
awesome.
really into doing like community events and planning
Mm-hmm.
things like garden parties and tea parties. And it's sort of like this has this like event planning hobby on the side. So she's always managing people and doing like PR material. So she has a lot of awesome stuff.
No, that's really sweet to hear. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Maybe one day we'll
But-
see, what should we call her? Mama Perk.
Yeah,
Maybe one day
she
she'll
hasn't
join us.
visited California for a while. She actually hasn't met Brightpaw. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
Oh,
because
wow.
normally whenever
Because
we
you would
discuss
travel.
visiting,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I want to go. I'll just head to the East Coast instead.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I know more stuff to do in California, and it's really cool with the wildflowers at different points in the season. I'm like, oh well, if you actually want to see stuff, like you can visit at certain times.
Mm-hmm.
She's not really a cat person though, so she's always
Is she more of a dog person?
um
Or just not pets in
she's
general?
not really like an outdoor animal person. She's more like a
Mm.
flower person. So the whole
Mhm.
idea that Brightpaw is jumping on things
Oh,
and
yeah.
rubbing his head against mine to show that he's respectful and we're friends.
Mhm.
And she's, why is he everywhere? Why can't he sit still? Like, why is he rubbing against you to show that he's your
Yeah.
friend? Can't he just like sit on
Yeah.
the floor and look cute? It's like, well, that's not really him.
Just sit on the floor, look cute, and sometimes water it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, my dad to meet Brightpaw. He does a lot of outdoor stuff. He's the one that's responsible for taking care of the ducks that live in the backyard, and they got 2 more ducks this past month.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like very outdoors and animal. My mom like, I would like to micromanage everything. So
Yeah.
But yeah, so so basically I will be doing outdoor stuff tomorrow instead of PTR data mining.
Yep.
But
I'm glad to hear that.
I mean, we posted
that
like
you're
a
able to
billion
do that.
articles today, so I didn't
Yeah.
even know what we would post.
Exactly.
Maybe on Saturday I would try to do a speculation post. Like we've got some, Ashara plot twists and some of the bosses that are weird. So if you want me to do any speculation posts in the style of my, long reads, let me know and I'll think about that for over the weekend.
I think that sounds like a good plan. Perk, I want you to enjoy your birthday tomorrow.
Thank you.
With all the fun things, all the celebratory things. And I think it's time to wrap up the show. And
yeah, I don't know if we can do 5. Like I can still
yeah,
but
I don't think that's possible.
not really moving.
High five with myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, we will see you all next week, same time. Well, the usual time, not the time of today, which was delayed. Covering whatever we have got available until then. Probably a bunch of PTR data mining. And until then, take care.
We will also have a surprise guest on the show. So
yes. I wasn't sure if I should mention it. We have a guest.
We have a guest on the show.
Yes,
so
we will have a guest.
Yeah, something to look forward to.
But the person is secret. For now, at least. But yeah, we will see you all next week. Thank you guys very much for supporting, for hanging out, supporting here on Twitch, supporting on Wowhead website, and everywhere. Thank you. And we will see you all.
Thank you so much for all the 8.2 coverage support. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome.
And thank you to the Wowhead team for being so fast with all the info dump, putting it all together in nice articles, making it a lot more easier for the rest of us to be able to read about.
Yeah. Good job, team. Yeah,
All right.
so I guess that wraps it up, and we will see you next week, earlier usual time.
Yep. Bye-bye. For a moment, I was like, wait, there's not
actually
two waves.
waving.
I'm the only one.
I'm waving.
All right. Okay. Perk is waving in spirit. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everyone. We will
Bye.
see you all next week.